Welcome to War and Untold Stories. Here, we explore the hidden side of war history. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and share your thoughts in the comments. Picture this. It's 1812. The United States, just a fledgling nation, finds itself staring down the barrel of a cannon aimed by the most powerful empire on Earth, Great Britain. This wasn't another fight for independence. This was a fight for something just as crucial: respect. The world watched, wondering if this young United States upstart could truly stand on its own 2 feet. This is the story of America's Second War of Independence, a conflict that would forge a nation's identity in fire and steel. How did a small country dare to challenge a global superpower? What were the stakes? And how did this forgotten war shape the America we know today? Stick around as we dive deep into the dramatic, often overlooked, and incredibly important War of 1812. So, what pushes a young nation to declare war on a giant? It wasn't one single event, but a slow burn of frustration and indignation. The British Empire, locked in a desperate struggle with Napoleon's France, saw the Atlantic Ocean as its own personal highway. They began choking off American trade, seizing ships, and strangling the U.S. economy. But it was the practice of impressment that truly lit the fuse. Imagine being an American sailor, minding your own business on an American ship, only to be captured by the British Royal Navy and forced to serve under their flag. Thousands of American citizens were kidnapped this way. It was an outright violation of American sovereignty, a slap in the face that couldn't be ignored. President James Madison, facing immense pressure, saw no other choice. In June 1812, he asked Congress to declare war. It was a monumental gamble. The United States had a tiny navy and a small, poorly trained army. Britain, on the other hand, had the most formidable military machine in the world. The stage was set for a classic David versus Goliath showdown. With the war declared, the Americans had to decide where to strike. The most obvious target? British North America, or as we know it today, Canada. The thinking was simple. Conquering Canada would be, as Thomas Jefferson famously put it, a mere matter of marching. It would give the U.S. a powerful bargaining chip and deliver a swift blow to British pride. So, American forces launched a 3-pronged invasion. But reality hit hard and fast. The mere matter of marching turned into a series of humiliating disasters. The invasions were poorly coordinated, led by aging and incompetent generals, and relied on ill-equipped militia who were often reluctant to fight. On the other side, the British, Canadian militia and their Native American allies, led by figures like the great Shawnee leader Tecumseh, mounted a fierce and effective defense. Instead of a quick victory, the Americans found themselves bogged down in brutal battles fought in dense forests and freezing snow. The dream of a swift conquest of Canada evaporated, and the United States was forced onto the defensive, realizing this war would be far tougher than anyone had imagined. For 2 years, the war raged along the Canadian border, a grueling and bloody stalemate. But in 1814, everything changed. Napoleon was defeated in Europe. Suddenly, Great Britain could turn its full, undivided attention to its pesky former colony across the Atlantic, and they were determined to make America pay. Thousands of veteran British troops, fresh from their victories against the French, were shipped to North America. Their plan? A devastating strike at the very heart of the young republic. In August 1814, a British force landed in the Chesapeake Bay and marched virtually unopposed towards the nation's new capital, Washington, D.C. The American militia defending the city collapsed in a panic at the Battle of Bladensburg. What happened next was a national humiliation. British troops marched into Washington, and in retaliation for American raids in Canada, they set fire to the city's most important public buildings. The Capitol building was burned. The president's mansion, what we now call the White House, was engulfed in flames. President Madison and his government were forced to flee. It seemed as though the American experiment was on the brink of total collapse. With Washington in ashes, the British set their sights on their next target, the crucial port city of Baltimore. If Baltimore fell, the war could be lost. The city's primary defense was Fort McHenry, a star-shaped fortress guarding the harbor entrance. In September 1814, the British fleet unleashed a ferocious 25-hour bombardment on the fort. For a day and a night, the sky was lit up by the red glare of rockets and the bombs bursting in air. On board one of the British ships was a detained American lawyer named Francis Scott Key. All through the night, he anxiously watched the relentless assault, straining to see if the fort's massive American flag still flew. As dawn broke on September 14th, through the smoke and mist, he saw it. The flag was still there, defiantly waving over the ramparts. The British attack had failed. Baltimore was saved. Overwhelmed with emotion and relief, Key began to jot down the words to a poem on the back of a letter. He called it The Defense of Fort McHenry. We know it today as the Star-Spangled Banner, the American national anthem, a lasting tribute to the resilience and endurance shown in that desperate defense. While the British were being repelled at Baltimore, another major battle was brewing in the South. The target this time was the vital port of New Orleans, the gateway to the Mississippi River and the entire American interior. To defend the city, the Americans had a charismatic, tough-as-nails general named Andrew Jackson. His army was a motley crew: U.S. Army regulars, frontier militia from Tennessee and Kentucky, local citizens, pirates, and free men of color, all united under his iron-willed command. In January 1815, a large professional British army, confident of victory, launched a frontal assault on Jackson's well-entrenched defensive line. The result was a catastrophe for the British and one of the most lopsided victories in American history. In less than an hour, the British suffered over 2,000 casualties, while the Americans had fewer than 100. The Battle of New Orleans was a stunning triumph that electrified the nation. It turned Andrew Jackson into a national hero and gave Americans a renewed sense of pride and confidence. The funny thing is, the battle was technically fought after the war was already over. Unbeknownst to both sides, American and British diplomats had signed the Treaty of Ghent in Europe 2 weeks earlier, officially ending the conflict. The Treaty of Ghent, which ended the war, was an interesting document. Essentially, it returned everything to the way it was before the fighting started. No territory changed hands. The treaty didn't even mention the issues of impressment or trade rights that had caused the war in the first place. So if nothing was gained, was it all for nothing? Absolutely not. For the United States, the outcome was a profound psychological victory. The nation had gone toe-to-toe with the British Empire and survived. It had proven that it could and would defend its sovereignty. The disastrous start to the war had been washed away by the glorious victory at New Orleans. A wave of patriotism and national unity, known as the Era of Good Feelings, swept across the country. The war launched the careers of future presidents like Andrew Jackson and William Henry Harrison, and it solidified America's independence once and for all. Great Britain would never again challenge U.S. sovereignty. The United States had earned its respect on the world stage. And so, the War of 1812, often overshadowed by the Revolution and the Civil War, stands as a critical turning point. It was America's second war of independence, a messy, difficult, and at times desperate struggle that ultimately confirmed the nation's place in the world. From the fires of a burning Washington to the triumphant defense of Baltimore and the stunning victory at New Orleans, the war forged a new sense of American identity and national pride. It showed that the young republic was not a temporary experiment, but a permanent and powerful force to be reckoned with. The flag that Francis Scott Key saw flying over Fort McHenry became a symbol of a nation that had been tested by fire and had emerged stronger, more unified, and forever free. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey back in time. If you found this story fascinating, please hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into history. Let us know in the comments what historical event you'd like to see us cover next. See you in the next video.